So, just a short video on the WE P90, why the trigger so crappy is. First of all, this here is for Germany, shoots semi only. This here is for full auto. Okay, this here's the original hammer with the semi-auto, well, not the hammer, Sear, the semi-auto Sear. So without this part it shoots full auto, and why it is so crappy is because of this surface here. This surface here was what releases the Sear. When you push back on the trigger, it pushes this bar back, and you have two surfaces rubbing together to make this here release going forward. This here goes forward as well, and when it shoots, the hammer gets trapped here first, so it doesn't release right away if you're still keeping the trigger pressed, semi-auto. And here you got this here pulling it back for shooting full auto. Here we got the whole trigger pack. Installed in here is my printed parts. I'll show them in a second in Fusion. This here gets pulled forward by the bolt when it's in battery, and thus the hammer can go all the way forward. If you just press here, you see it gets stuck there until you release this here. So these parts in here are printed, and it makes for a way easier trigger pull. Really easy. You still got some other issues there, but I'll show them to you in a second why. But first I'll just show what I did and why it is a bit better. So here we go. This is mine, the one I made. This here's the original. I just put this, well, what do we call it, hump on there. This hump, I'll just put the semi-autos here back in here. They're connected through a small pin here. These sides, we got two of them. I blended the left one out because it blocks it. Are in there to keep everything in place. So this here is the release for it. I call it the Sear helper. I put a small screw in here. It just goes to the end here from both sides, and it keeps it in place. And you got the trigger bar. This here is one I print as well. So it's really easy. What you got there is just, and this trigger bar pushes this here back. It pushes up on this, and thus releasing the hammer from the top here. There's no hocus pocus because we got a pinpoint here. This here rotates really easy. It gets brought back by the spring that also comes from the front, also goes on the hammer. It uses spring tension from these two Sears. The semi-auto and the normal Sear just uses them. Because it's printed, I added this extra bar just to give it some rigidity. So these here, first I just copied them from the original and changed the way I wanted to calculate it how far the trigger bar has to go back to release it, what it did before, and just put it into math here in the release mechanism with this Sear helper. So, looking at it, well, this is how it looks. I don't know how much you can see in there, but got on the sides here. It's a bit of a bitch to install, but on the sides here you can just, well, you can wriggle it in there, it'll fall into place. The sides are getting held together through this here. The trigger unit slots in here. On the sides where it screws together, it gets held in place. And then put a distance part in there. Keeps any movement to a minimum. There's actually no movement at all on the sides, what's important. Nothing to interfere with the mechanism itself. So, see if this here stays. So, you just have a bit of, you can press this here really easy and it gets released. The other part that makes this here hard is if you tighten the screw too much, the trigger won't have any movement. You need to be able to move this trigger. It's set to semi-auto in here, to push it very lightly. Easier it goes, easier your trigger pull will get, even with the normal trigger pack. And it all ends up in here. You can see how it interfaces. I printed a small bar, I don't know if you can see it, goes in between here. It keeps this trigger bar from, when you put it under pressure, getting pushed together. You got two edges here, and if you push them, they squish together and give you a harder trigger pull and a mushier one. So I made this little block, sits in there. It just keeps it tight in there. There's absolutely no movement. Well, there's about maybe 0.2 millimeters movement, but it's nothing. So it's made it as easy as it can be here, and made it easy in here too. I will see how long they last. Printed with PLA. Since my mill is not up and running, it will probably take a couple of million years to get all that to work. So make sure this here is not too tight, so this here moves easily. There's a spring in here pushing the trigger forward, and that kinds of inhibits us to make a real easy trigger pull. I'll need to take this all apart and put a, well, an easier spring in there, but well, maybe in time. I'll just show here this mount I made for micros. I really like it. Brings this down to a better height, if you ask me. I like it better down there. We still got the integrated sights, forward, backwards. I made room in there for the optic protector I got on here. I printed this rubber, milled a 4mm thick polycarbonate window in there, and well, no chance of it getting ruined. Well, maybe if I'm behind, but I don't plan on getting shot in the back. So getting back to here, printed parts are the trigger bar. Sanded it down, everything moves nice and easily. printed the semi-auto sear. The normal sear is, I'll just release the hammer. This sear here, the two sides, and down there we got the sear helper. The reason that I made the sear helper go across is because I want the rigidity. It stays in place. If I have two separate pushing up on a bar, there's a possibility that they could move. This way it moves freely on the screws I put in here, and it worked without a problem. Next I'll see if I can I'll just get all this out of here. Semi-auto, sear, there you go. If I can make a hole in here and put a part up here on the original sear, that's my next part, so I can use the original hammer. The rear of the hammer, everything behind here, up here, is not used at all. Only this surface down here to release it. So it should be able to just plunge a hole down here and put a part up to help release it. But, well, that'll be the next part. I'll just show you the whole, this is the whole unit, and it gets put into the other one.